Thanks for joining us today. We'll do some rapid fire questions right now. You just tell us what comes off the cusp. What's the most underrated sales tactic right now?
Sitting in the silence.
Sitting in silence.
The moment you ask an uncomfortable question, or if you give price in a negotiation, don't say a word. I think too many sellers are afraid to let the prospect take a step first forward and fill the space, when if they just waited for a second, they would get a reaction that told you more than anything you could have said by filling that space yourself.
Question 2. What's something the buyers say that's secretly a red flag?
You've done everything right as a salesperson. This happens especially often when people are getting toward the end and there's like 2 or 3 vendors in there and they're like, we really like you guys, you've done everything right, but there are a couple things we like about these folks too. And what that means is you've won on likability as a person, but you have not won on business problems or on solution agreement. Do not think that people will buy from you just because they're your friend. They will not. They will only buy from you if you are solving a business problem for them. And being friendly helps you expose that because they might talk to you a little bit more, but being a friend alone does not close a deal for you.
Likability only goes so far, right?
Correct.
Question 3. How do I know if the deal I'm working on is progressing? How can I feel that out?
So a lot of sellers make the mistake of thinking of their sales cycle in terms of meetings. They'll say, meeting 1 is discovery, meeting 2 is demo, meeting 3 is multi-threading or proposal, meeting 4 is negotiation. And that's one way to think about it, but that has no indication whatsoever on where your buyer's head is at. Instead, I like to think of my sales cycle in terms of, have I answered the key questions in my prospect's mind as to, are they ready to buy? So the 4 questions that get answered in order are: number 1, problem agreement. Do I believe that I have a problem that you can solve? Number 2 is solution agreement. Do I believe that you can solve that problem? Number 3 is power agreement. Does power or my boss agree that this is a problem we're solving? And then number 4 is commercial agreement. Do I believe that solving this problem is worth the price? And you can do that in one meeting in a one-call close, or it might take you 5 meetings and a POC just to get to solution agreement. So you should start thinking about, what are the questions that my prospect needs to answer, and start running your sales cycle around those versus around whatever meetings you need to have.
Never go wrong being customer focused, right? Just really
Correct.
locking in on what they want. What mistakes do some people make when they're structuring their sales calls? Like, what are some faults that they make?
They start building rapport, and then they're afraid to go back and set an agenda. A lot of times you'll jump in and you might come in and have a really good observation, or maybe you come in with a really good point of view on the business and the person's like, oh my God, they're giving you all these things about their priorities and all that stuff, and you just jump right into discovery. And you're afraid to break that momentum in the call and go back and set the agenda. And the problem is 50% of the time, that's okay, because a prospect will be like, okay, I'm happy riffing here. But what you don't realize is a lot of times a prospect, when they click the request a demo button, they're expecting a demo on that call. And if you don't address upfront, hey, like, the reason I'm asking you these questions is because before we jump into the product or before we jump into pricing, I need to get a sense of like how you're doing things today to actually show you the right stuff. A lot of times your prospect 15 minutes in the call is going to be like, hey, hold on, like, I'm sort of done answering these questions. Are you going to get into the product?
I'm ready to see it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So just pause and be like, hold on, I just realized we just jumped into this. By the way, the reason I'm asking these questions is because I want to make sure that I can show you the right stuff later on. You cool with that? Awesome, jump right back into it.
Setting expectations is super important. Salespeople can miss it sometimes.
Correct.
Absolutely. What should I be looking out for when I'm reviewing my sales process, my pipeline? What are maybe some positives, some negatives? What should I be looking for?
So you should be thinking not about what are you going to do next, but what are you trying to get next? So if I look at a seller's pipeline and I look at their next steps field, bad next steps look like, next step is on June 27th, I have a demo. And the reason for that is a demo is simply a tool to get something out of your prospect. Instead, you should say, on June 27th, I have a demo, and the goal of that demo is to get my champion to say, Pipedrive is my vendor of choice. you're thinking about, why am I using that demo? What am I trying to get out of that demo? Not, I'm just going to show them the software and hope that they tell me that they're going to buy my thing.
Right. Don't just make it the fourth demo of the day. It's got to be targeted specifically. What do I want to get out of it?
No meetings for the sake of meetings.
Absolutely. Love it. What's one thing that a rep can do today to close more deals?
Start your day thinking, how am I going to break into one of my top 5 accounts? You start your day and you say, these are my top 5 accounts. And if nothing else happens, I take one meaningful action into cracking into one of my top 5, you will do more prospecting than the vast majority of reps do. Most reps sit there and they stare at their pipeline that's shrinking and they cling to deals that are never gonna go anywhere. And they hope, oh, maybe I can get this prospect who hasn't responded to me in 17 days to like maybe agree to a next call, even though they already sort of told me they weren't interested on the last call. You should just drop that deal and instead think from an abundance mindset, how can I go get one more every day? And then you'll find that you're actually moving your pipeline quickly because your deals have real energy in them versus clinging on to dead deals.
Just as important to know what deals you can win and which ones you can't.
Right.
All right, we're ready for round 2. Question 1. What's the weirdest way that you've been ghosted by a prospect?
There was one time where I had a prospect and I could track their email opens. And I was sending them every email possible. I was calling them time after time. And they were a referral, and I knew the referral was having like coffee and drinks with them. So I knew they were around, and they knew that I was talking to that person, okay? But this person wouldn't reply to any of my calls. What did I do? I used *67, which privatizes your number. So after like 20 calls, they hadn't responded to a single call. I call from a private number, and they answer on the first call. And I'm like, it's Armand from Northwestern Mutual. I got eviscerated for 10 minutes straight. They called me a stalker. They said I have no ability to read the room. And that is when I learned in sales, if someone is ghosting you, you think you need to get an answer, you're getting the answer when you are ghosted.
Sometimes it's just good to part ways at that point, right? You got to know when to cut your losses. What's your biggest sales pet peeve, either that you find in yourself or maybe that you see other salespeople do?
I hate it when salespeople do the pressure pitch.
Okay.
So a lot of times people will do things like, oh, never give them an out. Or if they get an objection like, I'm not interested, they think I need to pitch. They're like, oh, but I know what solution you're using and our solution's much superior, or we have this % ROI. And what you don't realize is most objections are not really objections. Most objections are reactions. So if someone picks up a cold call and they're like, I'm not interested, they're not actually considering the pros and cons of your solution. You interrupted their day and they're like, I'm not interested, get out of my way.
Yeah.
And so instead what you actually have to do is you have to agree with the objection so that you can release some pressure and get more information out of them. So if someone says, I'm not interested, I might say, hey, Jane, like, totally get it. Honestly, you probably would have called me if you were. Just so no one else calls you again, is it because you already have something in place, or was it like my pitch totally sucked?
Okay.
And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, no. Here's what we're doing, and then you can handle the real objection.
Question 3, what's the wildest excuse that a prospect has ever given you for maybe why they didn't buy, why they didn't want to continue?
I've had prospects say things, sorry, I didn't realize that I hadn't taken my dog walk for the day. And so for that reason, by the time I got back, legal had already left and I couldn't send them the red lines. I've literally lost the deal because someone had to take their dog to pee and legal left in the process.
Oh my gosh. So let's do a quick this or that. You just tell me which one you prefer.
Okay.
All right. Demo or disco?
Disco.
Disco for sure. Why?
The demo's purely a way to prove that what I said in discovery was true. If you told me that this is the problem you have and I can solve it, the demo just proves to you that I wasn't lying.
Cold call or a cold email?
Cold call, especially today. You know, back in the day, sequences were like the easy button. You could just click a button and you could book 4 meetings a week on cold email. There are more and more teams with like these AI SDRs, email machine guns, who are now moving their SDRs to doing like 90% cold calls because most cold emails are going to spam.
Closing or prospecting?
I think closing is more important. And by closing, I don't mean asking for the business. I mean doing really good discovery. It does not matter how good you are at filling your funnel if you cannot get people from first call to second call. It doesn't matter how good you are at a demo. It doesn't matter how good you are at business cases. If you cannot find the right things in that first call, you can work your SDRs, you can work marketing, or you can be really efficient on that first call, but you could have 100 deals, and if you suck at discovery, you will not close anything outside of SMB selling.
Number 4, commission or clout?
Personally, clout. Here's a fun fact. I never, in 5 years from AE to VP of sales, I never looked at my commission statements one time. I only looked at where I was on the leaderboard. There was just something that was like, I would see the 10 bars and I would look at pipe gen at the beginning of the month and I would be like, I'm gonna be like 3 times as big of a bar as the next rep. And I know that that will lead to money. And that's what I got excited about. If you get excited about clout, you will get commissions. If you get excited about commissions, oftentimes you'll chase closing deals instead of chasing the right inputs to close the deals.
Okay. CRM or spreadsheet?
CRM. Here's the thing. When you're early, if you're like just a founder, the first thing you need to do is put 25 accounts into a spreadsheet and just start getting calls. But the moment you start having real deals, get opportunities in place, and then get like a separate, I used to like try to buy real estate, and I remember I had a spreadsheet of like 1,000 property owners, and it was impossible for me to track like which property owners were people that I needed to get in touch with versus the ones that I had conversations with versus the ones that I had conversations with, it went somewhere but then it died. 9 times out of 10, just get a CRM, but don't get a clunky one that is too big for your size.
Get a nice easy one, like Pipedrive.
There you go.
CRM. Last one, a pipeline full of maybes or a half full pipeline of winners?
I would rather have the truth than a bunch of stuff that looks nice, but ends up at 0 at the end of the day. A lot of people think your pipeline should look like a funnel, and that's not true. It should look like a martini glass. It's like really wide at the top, and then it tapers super thin where you find the real stuff, and you only focus on the 3 or 4 deals that get you to President's Club. People think you need a million opportunities to get to President's Club. You don't. If you look at the best mid-market sellers, the best enterprise sellers, they cull all the crap at the top, and they're like, these are the 5 that are actually going to close, and then they spend all their time on those.
All right, thanks so much, Armand. Sales guru here. We appreciate your time.
Go check out Pipedrive, folks. That thing is light and fast. If you like stuff like this, you probably like to close deals. And if you like to close deals, you probably want to close them faster, not slower. So we put together a free masterclass with Pipedrive on how to close deals faster every single day. It is 100% free. Go check it out down here.